afternoon. Don't get up. Not on my account. If you need to go, then go now. But I presume you're going to stay because, well, you just got here. Is everybody comfortable? Can I get you a sandwich? Are we good? Good. Let's go. Welcome to my home. Actually, I don't own this house. It belongs to the university, but they kindly allow me and my wife to reside here. I appreciate your coming all the way across the street to visit me today. I guess when you turn 95, people start coming to you instead of the other way around. Bloomfield Avenue has become so busy these days. You took your life into your own hands just to come here. I would have liked to have met you over in Millard Auditorium or some such, but this is nice. It's intimate. Just me and you students. It's the way it has always been. As some of you may know, this house has quite the history. It was built by Dr. Thomas Hepburn, who created the urology department at Hartford Hospital. That may not sound exciting at your age, but when you get to be 95, you will benefit from Mr. Hepburn's work. He was also a pioneer in the field of education regarding venereal disease. Now, his wife, Catherine Houghton Hepburn, was a pioneering suffragette and birth control advocate. As college students, perhaps you have benefited from her work and his work. Oh, and they also had a daughter who went on to achieve greatness. The Hepburns valued excellence. This house, it reflects their success. Yes, it's beautiful. But it does not hint at their commitment to excellence in their chosen fields. Their lives reflect that commitment. Their legacy reflects that commitment. And that is what I love about my house. It stands for excellence, drive, and commitment. It's much like the Hartt School. When the university said they wanted to throw a birthday celebration for my 95th birthday, I was tickled. But frankly, I expected it. The Hartt School has always celebrated my birthdays in particular style. Every year during my tenure as dean, the students and the faculty would have a birthday concert in my honor. The students would perform, I would perform, the occasional faculty or special guest art. One unfortunate student had to dress up and imitate me. Can you imagine? He would scamper on stage with the trousers pulled up to his armpits, a plaid button-down short-sleeved shirt, and of course, a pipe. I guess when I turn 100, I will be invited back to the university and my life will be celebrated. I won't complain because I absolutely love it. Birthdays, anniversaries should be celebrated. Growing old in and of itself is not an achievement, but growing is an achievement. You cannot and will not stagnate if you embrace the fact that your education has no expiration date. That is what the Hartt School celebrates on my 95th birthday, not my age, but my desire to keep teaching, to keep learning, and my absolute belief in the necessity of musical greatness. So, you may be wondering, why are you here? Why is this geezer talking to me? Who is this Uncle Moshe? I am talking to you because I am the musical equivalent of the Energizer Bunny. I just keep going and going and going. Boom, boom, boom. 90 of my 95 years have been spent in the service of music, or in the words of our founder, Julius Hartt, in the service of the beautiful. My musical education began at the age of 5. While other kids would run around Front Street playing marbles or hopscotch or some such, I took up the violin.
I like learning the violin, but Mrs. Obamowitz downstairs, not so much.
My parents encouraged my love of music and my switching to the piano, while my mother filled the house with the smell of her brisket.
I was filling our apartment with the sounds of Beethoven, Brahms, and Bach. Not always beautiful, but effortful.
Would it kill you to give the piano a break and go play outside like a normal kid?
I forgot to mention, my name isn't, or at least it wasn't, Moshe.
Or Paranoff, if you must know.
My name is Morris Perlmutter.
Such a beautiful name.
I was born in 1895 on Pequot Street in the east side of Hartford.
Why don't you run down to Mr. Scarletti's pushcart and fetch me some tomatoes?
Our neighborhood isn't there anymore. They raised it to build Interstate 91.
It's a shanda, gone. All the shops and houses and restaurants.
And the theaters.
For an ugly highway.
Even though our neighborhood was known as Hartford's Little Italy, it was also home to Russian Jews who, like my parents, had immigrated to pursue the American dream.
And escaped the pogroms.
Mama, I'm getting paid to sing at Mendel Iskowitz's wedding.
Imagine that! My boy singing in the Dosius Royal.
My first jobs were in music. And as it would turn out, my only jobs were in music. Even up to today. And yes, I still work at 95, and you will too, if you're lucky to do what you love.
Then Mr. Hartt says you should concentrate on the piano. He says you're quite good with the violin and with the singing, but your gifts lie with the pianoforte.
But Mr. Baldwin at school says I can make money singing.
Baldwin Schmaldwin, you listen to that nice Mr. Hartt.
I first met Julius Hartt when I attended the Goodwill Club for Boys.
He had come to Hartford to be the organist at the Salem Hill Congregational Church, but he soon began teaching piano to area children.
Oh, look! Mr. Hartt has an article in the Hartford Times. Letters of a Musician. The title not so exciting, but you read.
Music is a life to be lived. No artist's art is greater than his life. The music that you play is not only the music of the composer, it is yourself. Your art is you. If your soul is a little soul, if your life is a little life, then your art is a little art, and you are a little artist.
So smart, that one!
I was conducting the student orchestra at the Goodwill Club one day when Mr. Hartt took me aside and told me that I had a gift and that music would be my life. He also said, however, that it would be a lifetime that would require a musical education, a steady diet of the greatest works ever written, and rigorous practice.
But Julius also said, no one can study music to much purpose if he shuts himself up to the study of music exclusively. It is at this point that so many would-be musicians fall down. Despite this admonition, I went to my principal at the high school with a note.
My piano instructor says I must rehearse every day for 4 hours if I'm to become a great musician, so I'm seeking your permission to arrive at school at 10:30 a.m.
Do your parents know of your desire to be truant for 3 hours of school every day?
Yes, I have a note.
Not to contradict your well-meaning piano teacher, but our role here at Hartford Public High School is to provide a more global education and put you on a path to a more fruitful and well-paying career. That cannot occur if you absent yourself from literature, music, chemistry, and the like.
But sir...
Back to class!
So I dropped out of high school.
That's right. My quote-unquote formal education ended in the 10th grade. Later, I would write.
One of the mysteries of teaching in the public schools is that nearly all of the gurus and geniuses that daily receive almost universal admiration and respect throughout history would not qualify legally to be our child's teacher.
So, you may be wondering how I had the chutzpah to end up not only co-founding one of the finest institutions of music education in the world, but leading it for 37 years. Simply put, I worked my tail off. I practiced every day from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., sometimes more. You would think I would tire of pushing myself to do better and be better. But when you strive to be good enough to serve the music, nothing short of total commitment is the price that you must pay.
Some might call it obsession.
I practice for 4 hours a day and continue my lessons with Mr. Hartt. I start playing piano with small orchestras at some of Hartford's most she hotels.
The Allen House, the Hotel Hubline, and the massive Garde Hotel on the corner of Asylum and High Street.
Leveled to make way for the hideous Hartford Civic Center.
Oftentimes I performed at more than one hotel a night.
I was seen dashing in and out of so many different hotels. I'm surprised I didn't wind up with a reputation as a gigolo.
I also play piano for the silent picture shows.
Ah, the State Theater, the Regal, the Princess.
In 1912, I make my concert debut at Unity Hall on Pratt Street.
Beethoven's G major piano sonata.
You'd think my hands and knees would be shaking, but they weren't.
I am so certain of my vocation, even if I'm only a teenager. From sun up to sundown, my life is music. I also start to teach piano.
For one student in particular, Julius Hart's daughter, Pauline.
Her dedication to music rivaled my own.
How could it not? It was in her genes.
She was a tiny little chickadee.
Her father called her Dot because she was just that.
A dot.
But Dottie's musical appetite was voracious and her ability prodigious.
I was only 16.
And she was 12.
At that time, I was only in love with my music. But we were together day in and day out. Eventually, I fell in love with her and she fell in love with me. I was pursuing my career like mad and she was pursuing her career like mad.
When we decided to pursue them together.
She fell in love with Morris Perlmutter. But in 1924, she married Moshe.
But we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves.
Myself.
Julius takes me to New York to meet esteemed Swiss composer Ernest Bloch.
My friend Hartt has a young pupil of 21 years who is absolutely extraordinary as a musician and pianist. This boy's name is Morris Perlmutter, and I'm convinced he's a real genius. This boy, who in 3 days learns by heart a whole Brahms sonata, is a modest and simple boy, humble and without a shadow of pretension. He does not enthuse and does not live except under the inspiration of music.
It's true. I see, feel, eat, breathe, and sleep music. You would think that a world war would curtail my passions, but it doesn't.
In 1918, I was conscripted into the United States Army. No one would look at me and think I was doughboy material, so I was sent to Fort Devens, Massachusetts.
And promoted to band sergeant of the 73rd Infantry Division, while my brothers in arms were waging war with bayonets.
I served my country with a baton.
But all good and bad things must come to an end. World War I ended with the signing of an armistice, but before that even happened, I had written to my commanding officer, asking to be deployed back to Hartford to begin the Battle of Beethoven.
There is a small music school that needs me.
And a certain young lady with whom you've been keeping up a wartime correspondence.
Pauline.
Dot.
Permission granted. At ease, soldier.
I arrived at the base as Morris Perlmutter, but I returned to Hartford as Moshe Paranov.
I was intent on starting a career as a concert pianist, and Morris Perlmutter simply was not going to cut the mustard. Rachmaninoff, Paderewski, Rubinstein.
Perlmutter.
So I became Moshe Paranov.
And how did I choose such an august appellation?
How did one Morris Perlmutter become Moshe Paranov?
None of your business.
And there you have it.
I will reveal all on my 100th birthday.
In 1921, I make my New York debut at Aeolian Hall.
The critics weren't kind.
A new pianist, Boris Paranov.
Yes, I toyed with calling myself Boris.
Boris Paranov made his debut on October 20th in Aeolian Hall. After one had gotten used to his rather distressing mannerisms, it was apparent that he had adequate technique and a scholarly attitude toward his art. The pianist was at his best in a group of seldom-heard pieces, representing such composers as Froberger, Kernberger, and Couperin, in which he showed an aptitude for bringing out the niceties of small compositions. His playing was pleasing and seldom incorrect, but its virtues were rather negative, lacked distinction or command.
Maybe an evening of 17th and 18th century Baroque harpsichord music was a bit ambitious for a New York debut.
Would have knocked him dead in Hartford.
Maybe I will fare better in my Boston debut.
November 10th, 1922.
Moshe Paranov.
No one who read the New York reviews would know this was the same pianist.
Moshe Paranov, pianist, was heard for the first time in this city. He came highly recommended by Ernest Bloch. Although the number of musical attractions on the same evening prevented one from hearing Mr. Paranov's whole program, it was by no means hard to find a sound basis for the interest of Mr. Bloch. This young pianist has already achieved an unusual command of touch and tone. His phrasing is that of an intelligent musician.
An intelligent musician.
He has an unerring sense of the melodic and dramatic aspects of the music in hand. As an interpreter, he convinces through his sympathetic response to the poetic and emotional qualities of his pieces. We would like to hear this pianist in music of larger scope. Mr. Paranov will bear watching.
A marked improvement.
But maybe my gifts lie elsewhere.
In Hartford.
Where a school and Pauline are waiting.
I didn't give up entirely. I did perform with the New York Philharmonic.
But our greatest achievement,
Our legacy.
Would begin with the creation of the Julius Hartt, Moshe Peronov and Allied Piano Teachers Music School.
At the Hartt home on Sigourney Street.
in short order, it became apparent that our small enterprise had a much greater calling.
Mr. Hartt once wrote,
Art is a creed and a religion, that like all creeds and all religions that ennoble men uplift humanity, rests deep in the inexorable and eternal principle of the cross.
"But I'm Jewish."
I mean simply that a true artist's life must conform to the principle of the cross. I mean that the true artist's creed begins with self-denial. I mean that the artist's salvation hinges upon self-forgetfulness. I would wish that every young musician like yourself would come early to realize that control and subjugation of self in 100,000 ways is the real technique to be acquired, the technique of right living. Now, at the threshold of your career, I wish that you could clearly see that no artist's art is greater than his life. I wish that this great truth might sink deep into your inner consciousness, that art is life.
How could we aspire to such loftiness by merely offering lessons? We would need to offer a more structured pedagogy.
A rigorous curriculum.
A total commitment to music.
We would need a dedicated space.
A school.
Church.
Or synagogue.
Where we can teach,
Learn.
Practice.
exalt, and expand.
Live like a family.
So, it was decided that we needed a new home. We purchased a building at 222 Collins Street.
Right next to Julius Hart's home.
Where we could eat, breathe, sleep music.
And nearly go broke.
We need pianos, furniture, music.
Students.
We began $20,000 in debt. Now, I'm sure that none of you students today understand what it is like to start your life burdened with immense loans.
Welcome to the Julius Hartt School of Music, an institution devoted to the comprehensive music education.
The founders, Julius Hartt, Mr. Samuel Berkman, Ms. Pauline Hartt, and me.
And Ernest Bloch moves to Hartford to join our fledgling enterprise.
The Julius Hartt School of Music believes that for teachers and pupils, to be must precede to do. It believes that for teacher or pupil, it is impossible to build up a superstructure of musical attainment without a solid foundation of personal character and comprehensive education along many lines.
Julius wrote our first catalog, and it reads more like a manifesto, a statement of our unwavering philosophy. That catalog was as much for teachers as it was for students.
The Julius Hartt School of Music steadfastly believes that no true teacher can be a phonograph-like reproducer of other men's ideas, that no efficient teacher can be a rubber stamp of some master or some so-called method, any more than it can be an officious, routine-serving coxcomb, that no teacher really qualified to teach can be a silly prig chiefly concerned with seeking to convey impressions of his own unapproachable seniority, nor a misguided individual who in his own fancied importance but actual superficiality visualizes himself as embodying the art or being larger than the art that he essays to serve. That he cannot be a high and mighty martinet of a genus old-fashioned but happily becoming extinct, a species of teacher that has become all too common in the world of music teaching, a species of pedagogue that, affecting superdelicacy of musical hearing and hypersensitiveness of artistic perception, believed in reducing pupils to coarse, insulting, and fear-inspiring treatment, to the lowest terms of abject self-distrust, and in forcibly pushing them down into a dark ravine of discouragement whence they must look up and servilely contemplate the immense and lonely heights of attainment upon which their teachers dwelt.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was one sentence. However, it was that high-mindedness that put teachers and students on notice. We were dead serious on building a conservatory that expected excellence and total commitment. And with that, we were off.
The rooms overflow with music.
Simultaneously a cacophony and a symphony.
From Jenny Hart's musical kindergarten all the way up to advanced levels of composition taught by Julius and Mr. Bloch.
Piano, violin, organ, voice.
Modern languages.
Musical languages.
Science.
Of piano tuning.
History.
Of music.
We endeavored to provide a multifaceted education. But wherever we took our students, music was always the terminal destination of our studies.
And even though we are in separate rooms working all hours of the day with different students, there was only one melody, one rhythm, one musical idea of Julius Hart's that we all embrace.
In the service of the beautiful. And in the service of our students. We would put mattresses under the pianos so they could wake up early or stay late to practice.
We had no money, but if a student was without coat or shoes, we would rob Peter to pay Paul.
The students come first.
The art comes first, but the students were a close second.
The work comes first.
Maybe we should agree to agree.
I think we are of one mind in this.
Even though the me was discarded for the we that was the Julius Hartt School, my own musical education was not, and nor would it ever be, at a standstill.
I would be a useless teacher if I'm not also a student. Learning, rehearsing, striving.
The piece that I'm studying and performing is the piece that I think is the greatest in the world. But whatever piece I'm performing, I do with all the power I have, everything within me, to perform it as beautifully as I know how.
I continue to concertize as a pianist, but I also begin conducting on a more regular basis.
With WTIC's in-house orchestra. Forebear of the Hartford Symphony Orchestra.
Many of our concerts were broadcast by coast-to-coast hookup.
Live from Hartford, Connecticut, we are proud to present the WTIC Orchestra under the direction of
Moshe
Parvanov, conducting Bela Lugosi's...
Bartok.
Huh?
Bela
Bartok's Romanian folk dances.
Oy vey.
I miss the good old days when radio stations had their own orchestras.
But I don't conduct just orchestras. I also conduct for Hartford Hospital's training school glee club.
And the Cecilia Club of Hartford, another vocal ensemble.
And I conducted the very first note of the very first concert to be held at Hartford's glorious new Bushnell Memorial Hall. The combined forces of members of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, the Choral Club of Hartford, the Hartford Oratorio Society, the Cecilia Club, and the new auditorium's thunderous organ. We shook the beautiful ceiling mural with the glory of Bach's "Break Forth, O Beauteous Morning Light." We exalted this new temple of music. Later, I would conduct the very first performance of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony at the Bushnell Memorial.
Back on Collins Street, our musical family grows by leaps and bounds. My mentor and the founder of the Beethoven Association, Harold Bauer, joins our faculty. Julius was ecstatic.
No pianist of the period has so steadily and increasingly influenced American musical development. His appeal has never been addressed to the sensation-loving masses.
Imagine my honor when I got to perform Bach's Concerto in C for 3 pianos alongside Harold Bauer and Mark Twain's son-in-law, Maestro Osip Gabrilowitsch, at the Bushnell Memorial.
And Irene Kahn blessed our faculty with unparalleled piano artistry, while also teaching theory and opera.
I'm married to Dot, Julius is married to Jenny, Irene's married to Samuel Berkman. My marriage to Dot is a professional, artistic, and musical union that will last 52 years. I was, in every sense of the word, part of the Hartt family. So love and collaboration continue to strengthen our little circle.
And even though we are married to other people, Irene and I share an undeniable chemistry.
At the keyboard,
our duo piano concerts were beyond memorable, incomparable, the stuff of legend.
Irene and I brought out the best in each other, showing that true artists don't exist in a vacuum. You are open to others' musical ideas. You may struggle with another musician's competency, or you may run up against your own limitations, but Irene and I, we met on a mutual plane. I learned from her, and she learned from me, and we pushed each other into areas of artistry that we could not have discovered on our own. And when you listen to those recordings, it is hard to believe that there are two separate souls playing two distinct instruments. It was just
Of course, we didn't accept just anyone on the faculty. Our expectations were high.
I'm here to interview for the French horn teaching position.
play first, then we'll talk.
If we played well, they were basically hired on the spot. If they played poorly,
Thank you.
but the Julius Hartt School of Music continued to grow.
But it wasn't all work.
Irene, Samuel, Dot, me, and others would spend our summers at Columbia Lake in North Windham, Connecticut. We plant vegetables and eat what we grow.
And of course, we would make music.
And talk about music.
Ernst said only insane people would have such a dedicated vision and give up their lives to making music and musicians.
So, we were insane people. We were possessed with the desire to succeed at our enterprise, and we were succeeding. Our enrollment grew so much we had to grow with it.
We're adding a college division and a junior division.
We formally become the Hartford Musical Foundation. Later, the Julius Hartt Foundation in Julius's honor after his retirement in 1936.
You would think the absence of our indefatigable founder would be a blow. But he would always be central to our work. The great work continues. we created our first board of directors, and we welcomed an important new figure into our midst.
Alfred C. Fuller, president of the Fuller Brush Company.
Mr. Fuller was what every school, every non-profit organization, every arts organization wants: a passionate, dedicated believer in the mission.
With deep pockets.
Which were very much needed.
Still is.
But which was needed more than ever, as we're still recovering from the Great Depression.
Which we barely managed to survive.
And we had our eyes set on a new home.
The Hartford Seminary building at 187 Broad Street.
We really were in a church of sorts.
It was a beautiful brownstone building with a turret, and not one, but 2 basements.
Which could prove useful during World War II with air raids and the like.
A perfect recital space, much more formal venue, and all of the requisite classrooms, a library and the like.
Don't go looking for it today. It was leveled along with the glorious Hartford Public High School building to make way for I-84.
What is it with Hartford and leveling beautiful things?
Watch your back. A highway might come right through this house any minute.
I was now Julius's hand-picked successor. Not that there was ever really any question of that happening.
And I would begin every school year with a variation on a theme.
I want to welcome you all back for another season of excellence. What I want from each of you teachers is to know, what have you done today to help each of your students? And what have you done today to make yourself a more competent teacher and a more competent musician?
The same commitment that I expect of myself, I expect of my teachers and students. And note that I say expect in the present tense. Even today, even to age 95, that commitment is unyielding.
Kids would say hello to me in the halls, and I would respond.
Have you practiced today?
Teachers and students would eat together in the refectory, practice together in the rehearsal studios, and learn side by side in master classes from some of the finest musicians from around the nation. We weren't a small local concern any longer.
The State Board of Education granted us the honor of becoming the first independent institution in Connecticut with the right to confer a Bachelor of Music degree. Now, in short order, we were able to provide a bachelor's in music education and a master's degree in music and music education.
We added a department of dance to our ever-burgeoning educational portfolio.
And I endeavor to keep raising the bar on the quality of our faculty. I attract Alfred.
Mark you, I said Alfred.
Einstein, one of the world's great German musicologists, and Dr. Elmer Nagy, who immediately elevates our opera division to new and unexpected heights.
Our first opera was a double bill of the American premiere of Franz von Suppe's 10 Maidens and No Man, and Paul Hindemith's Here and There with Hindemith conducting.
Just take that in. World-class artists were being drawn to Hartford, and more specifically to the Hartt School, in less than 2 decades. And thanks to our students, our music education was going out into the world. I took a moment to give ourselves a well-deserved pat on the back in my annual board report.
Without an iota of hesitation, this has been the greatest year in the history of this school.
I pretty much said that every year.
With all humility, I'm willing to go on record as saying that no school in the country could have accomplished what we did this year.
And I meant it every year I wrote it.
When World War II arrived, we were, like everyone, hard hit.
Students were drafted, money became scarce, You would think that music instruction would become superfluous, knowing that millions were dying across the ocean.
But our work became more important than ever. I wrote in a board report,
Many beautiful things will be lost before this Holocaust is over. To what will our youth return? What can be salvaged? What must be salvaged and maintained at cost are things of the spirit, things that enable me. And the greatest contributor to the spirit, next to religion, is music. It is our function and our great duty to keep this institution alive, so that hope and beauty may be experienced again.
too many young men and women are being trained to kill with instruments of destruction. We too are privileged to train many young men and women, but thank God we educate them to understand life and truth and to create with instruments of construction.
We observed the 25th anniversary of the Hartt School during the war with a program entitled Music in Democracy. There was so much death, but we were committed to music, to art, to life.
Dot and I now have two beautiful daughters of our own.
Tonya and Nina.
Of course, their lives will be musical lives.
How could they not?
Dot is now serving by my side as Dean of Students, in addition to building costumes for Elmer's operas, teaching piano, raising our daughters, and holding down the fort as I continue to grow my obligations.
I conducted the country's first ever televised grand opera, Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel, for a television station in Schenectady.
And the premiere of William Schumann's first opera, The Mighty Casey.
I became the music director for WTIC.
The co-conductor for the Hartford Symphony Orchestra.
And the Brockton Symphony Orchestra.
I guest conduct with the Connecticut Opera.
And the Hartford Ballet.
I start the Spring Choral Festival of Secondary at Bushnell Memorial.
And served as the head of the music department for the Kingswood School for 20 years.
And the University of St. Joseph.
And Avon Old Farms.
And Loomis.
And worked with students at the Laurel Music Camp during the summers.
Plus, of course, teaching, lecturing, performing, and administrating for the Julius Hartt Musical Foundation.
I lived like it was my responsibility to scrub away the stains of war and apply the healing balm of music to our collective wound.
At times, it felt like I needed three of me.
There was so much music to create.
Oh, so many students to teach.
And a highway about to come through our building.
We needed to act quickly.
As always,
it seems my life has been spent acting in the utmost urgency. Not that I couldn't occasionally stop and smell the roses.
the Philadelphia Musical Academy conferred upon me an honorary doctorate of music.
Dr. Moshe Paranoff.
Me, the high school dropout.
Oh, but now I had to start building a university.
In my free time.
As one does.
With the bulldozers raring to go, the hunt was on for a new home away from Broad
A
Street.
conversation was initiated between Hillier College and Hartt to merge, forming the nucleus of what would become a University of Hartford. We announced our plans in 1956.
The Hartford Art School soon joined the fold.
1957, Governor Ribicoff signed our charter.
Hillier had already secured a 150-acre parcel of land.
Across the street from this very house.
Of course, as it would be since Hart's beginnings, money would be a concern.
Buying the house on Collins Street, the Great Depression, buying Broad Street, World War II. Seems like we could never catch up.
But as he had before, Mr. Fuller stepped up to the plate. Money that he had earmarked for the construction of a new auditorium on Broad Street was diverted to the building of our new campus. I wrote,
If any of you think you are harassed by me, well, there is one man who has proven he can take it. To stand me and my hallucinations, a man must be a superman. Brave, with the patience of Job and the skin of an alligator. That man deserves your and my admiration and love. I present him to you, and I know I speak for all of you when I say we are forever in his debt for what he is doing for us and humanity. Alfred C. Fuller.
as a benefit to raise funds, we even brought Jack Benny to the Bushnell to perform his world's worst violin player sketch.
We patiently waded through all of the intricacies of turning 3 separate institutions into an entirely new educational entity.
Without losing each of our unique identities. We could not just be absorbed into a university and lose Julius Hart's vision. I wrote,
The last 12 months have been the most exciting, breathtaking, stimulating, and time-consuming experience in our entire history. Ours has been the almost superhuman task of integrating the curricula and policies of 3 widely divergent institutions. I'm proud to tell you that our faculties and administrative officers, along with the heads of 3 colleges, have worked together very harmoniously. In fact, I've never witnessed a group of people who have given of themselves so unstintingly.
it was an investment in our future and would ensure that our students would receive the well-rounded education that Julius had felt was necessary for them to succeed at all of their endeavors.
The kind folks at Hillier College conferred my 2nd honorary doctorate.
Dr. Paranoff was named Vice Chancellor of the Performing Arts at the embryonic University of Hartford.
1962. We break ground on the Alfred C. Fuller Music Center.
1963, we moved from Broad Street to here.
With dedication exercises featuring operatic soprano Marian Anderson and a concert with Isaac Stern performing with our students.
Not bad for a school that started in Julius Hart's house. In less than 40 years, we'd gone from a vision to a reality, to a world-renowned conservatory, to a university.
It almost makes my head spin.
No crawling or toddling. We went from a run to a trot to a full gallop, never slowing down.
Always allegro.
Allegrissimo.
How could I slow down? I am in the service of Mozart,
Beethoven.
Handel.
Schumann,
Liszt.
Britten.
Bernstein.
Satie.
Dvorak.
We could be here all night.
A lifetime.
3 lifetimes.
We kept going from strength to strength. More students.
More faculty.
Not always more money, but for once, things were stable.
Thanks to Elizabeth Warner.
Oh, my dear Libby.
A Hartt graduate, she came back to the fold to serve as our associate dean and later our dean.
And my wife.
We're not there yet.
Well, this is her house as much as mine.
As much as the universities.
It's all right. You jump forward a few bars.
Oops. Oh. Apologies.
Even with all of these unparalleled growth, we still remained very much a family, as you can see.
Dot was still very much alive and contributing as much as...
If not more.
As a handful of a husband. She graduated from being our dean of students to being associate dean of students for the university itself.
I was so proud of my Dottie when the university gave her a medal for distinguished public service.
She was just as proud when I received the same honor.
And our daughters? Tanya ran the Children's Music Theater and Children's Singing School And Nina would go on to help preserve our legacy by maintaining and saving our audio collection.
My girls.
Still the proud papa.
They are as much a part of the Hartt family as their grandmother, their grandfather, their dear mama, and their proud papa. Tanya and Nina would grow up in the rehearsal studios, the costume shop, the concert halls, and the campus.
If my wife and daughters had not loved music and the school as much as they did, I don't know how I could have kept up this frantic pace for as long as I have. And increasingly, I was surrounded by genius.
We awarded an honorary doctorate to Aaron Copland.
And later grant one to Dizzy Gillespie.
Our students performed with Mstislav Rostropovich,
Yehudi Menuhin.
Dame Myra Hess.
Leonard Rose.
Isaac Stern.
We weren't just walking among giants, we became one.
I welcomed the wonderful jazz saxophonist Jackie McLean to our company.
What did I know about jazz? Nothing. So I hired this genius.
So now we have an enviable jazz program.
For now, I think my work here is done. Time to open the windows and doors and let some fresh air in.
Put my feet up and smoke my pipe.
Enjoy the company of my wife and daughters with my dog at my side.
I retire in 1971, leaving with the title President Emeritus. Isn't that nice? Dottie had retired, and I thought maybe at 76 I should too.
Fat chance. Do you think I'm going to sit around collecting dust when there is so much to do?
Of course not.
A normal day for me now. I teach a piano lesson at 7 a.m., then I'm off to an orchestra rehearsal. Then midday performance or lecture, teaching in the afternoon, another performance with another orchestra that evening, and dinner at 10 p.m. at my favorite restaurant.
On a light day.
I wasn't so much retiring as entering a new chapter of my musical adventures.
This time not as Morris Perlmutter.
Or Moshe Paranoff, or Dr. Paranoff.
Now I'm just Uncle Moshe, which suits me fine. So, what's next?
I serve as the music director for the Hartford Ballet Company.
And become artist in residence at the Torrington Public Schools.
And the Simsbury Public Schools.
And Watkinson School.
Actually, I wasn't artist in residence at Watkinson. I was a visiting professor. It pays better.
And I was once again teaching music at the Kingswood Oxford School, as I had over 50 years earlier when the Kingswood School for Boys was located in Mark Twain's house.
Of course, I continue to stay involved with things over at Hartt. Julius Hartt is the father of this institution, so I am happy to continue in my capacity as Uncle Moshe. I chat regularly with your new dean, and we have discussed the need to further develop dance into a degree program that we can be proud of. We also talk about adding a theater division to cover the entire array of performing arts.
I'm excited for the school's future.
Sadly, I lost my Dottie in 1981. For 70 years, she'd been part of my professional and personal life.
She was my student and my teacher.
My wife and the mother of our children.
My co-worker, my peer, my musical companion.
Dottie was not only a heart, she was my heart.
If Dottie was a whole note, Libby was a tie. That curved line that connects two notes of the same pitch, allowing the listener to believe they are but one note.
Since the 1940s, Elizabeth Warner had become an increasingly important part of my professional life. She had been a student at Hartt, and she became a member of our piano faculty.
She is an organist and a pianist.
She's a soloist, an accompanist, a performer, and a teacher.
She helped facilitate the creation of the University of Hartford.
She was the dean of the Hartt School.
She's a musician, an educator, and an administrator.
In short, she is perfect for me. And there she was, right there for 40 years. I am certainly not one to stagnate, and I am certainly not one of those men who is wired to be alone. I knew that Libby was beautiful and that we shared the same history and values and music.
Of course, we married.
And remain, happily so.
Yes, another Hartt love story.
Yet another Hartt love story.
Set to an unbelievable score.
Perfectly played by some of the most amazing musicians.
To a melody that was written by Julius Hartt nearly a century ago. I don't mean to take up much more of your time, as I know the school keeps you very busy, as it should. I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I look forward to my birthday parties. I've looked forward to them for 94 years, so it's a habit I can't change. Now, there are two birthday gifts that you can give me. The first is honesty in music. You must rehearse every day with energy, artistry, and commitment. When you are sitting down, or if you are a bassist or a percussionist or you're a vocalist, you're standing up, you need to honor the intent of the composer. Interpret their works with honesty. Remember, Julius Hartt built this school to be in the service of the beautiful. You cannot serve beauty and be dishonest at the same time. Perform with integrity, and you will achieve greatness. The second birthday gift is a little more sentimental and it's personal. This could be a lonesome time of life for me. Most people my age, they're not wanted. That seems to be the culture we live in. I don't believe it. I think it is wrong. If God has been kind and gives a man or a woman health, they may be at their most productive years between 70 and 100. Look at me. I am in my 90s and I am still working. I'm still rehearsing. I am still creating music. But I am not lonesome. I feel I am wanted. You have not put me out or shut your doors to me. A retirement can be like a divorce, but for me that has not been the case. The Hartt School continues to feel like a family. So, for my second birthday gift, all I ask is that you continue to treat me as your Uncle Moshe.
Richard Carsey, Uncle Moshe.
Scott Mazzapica, Morris Perlmutter.
Ed Bernstein, Moshe Paranoff.
Johanna Morrison, Director.
Kendall Grunald, Stage Manager. Danny Wergeles, Assistant Stage Manager.